I overheard my parents discussing how to kick my siblings and me out of the house while I was pretending to be asleep because I was playing with my Nintendo DS when I was supposed to be sleeping. I overheard my parents planning their divorce. I gave myself a tremendous plot spoiler. My freshman year college roommate was watching porn on his laptop using headphones and having sex with his mattress like there was no tomorrow. My father telling my mother that sometimes he just wanted to finish me off. I was 5 years old when I heard this. Given that my dad was an alcoholic and full of rage, I believed him, and I lived my entire childhood believing he was going to take my life. Listening to my brother talk in his sleep. Some days it's funny, and others it's scary. One night I decided to sleep in my little brother's bed. Let's call him Timmy. I was 16 and he was 7. We stayed up talking late, and my mom walked into the room talking on the phone with my dad. He and I were under the covers, about to burst out laughing and scare my mom, when she said, "Honey, I have to hang up, I'm going to put the coin under Timmy's pillow." His face changed instantly, and I had to comfort him all night, him asking me why they told him the tooth fairy existed when it was really my mom. He eventually told our old lady, "Mom," and now she just gives him the coin in his hand. When I was about 8 years old, I was supposed to be asleep, but I crept downstairs to get some milk or something. I heard talking downstairs, so I froze and listened. My mom was talking to my brother about what a problem I was and how she hated me. She always liked my brother more. I silently crept back upstairs and cried myself to sleep. While pretending to be asleep, I heard my mom's voice, but my mom was at a wedding. Plus, it was 2 a.m., and my mom got back at 5 a.m. While I was pretending to sleep, I heard my parents say that my cat was lying dead in the backyard, apparently poisoned. They didn't tell me anything the next day, and weeks passed, and they told me he was lost. Of course, I cried all night in my room. When I was sleeping in a bunk bed with my older brother, he once fell off the top while I was pretending to sleep on the bottom. All I heard was him curse under his breath and then fall silent, trying not to wake me up, while muttering more insults quietly. One day, I pretended to fall asleep. The thing is, I heard my parents say that having me was a huge mistake. It still hurts me. I always used to pretend to be asleep when my parents were home so they wouldn't come and bother me for any reason. One of those times happened a couple of weeks ago. My mother thought I was asleep and started criticizing me, saying I was useless, that my career was worthless, that I would never find a job or a future, and that I draw terribly. I study design and would like to dedicate myself to traditional illustration. Since I was pretending, I lay still for about 10 more minutes after that and then acted like I was groggily waking up. My mother was still there, and her attitude automatically changed to a loving one. To this day, she hasn't realized that I heard her, and it truly hurt me a lot that time. I once invited some friends over for my birthday, and we had a sleepover. The thing is, around 6 a.m., I woke up but kept my eyes closed, looking like I was asleep, and I heard two of my friends criticizing me and laughing at me. I don't know how I didn't explode at that moment. I suppose it's because I didn't have the personality I have now, and I was sleepy at the time. I once pretended to be asleep, and when my mom came into my room, she said, "I love you very much. I'm sure you can achieve anything you want." I swear I wanted to hug her, but I couldn't. I pretended to be asleep while hiding my phone and heard a background conversation, my dad saying, "I don't want to see him anymore after he turns 18. He never does anything with his life." I was 12 at the time. My mom said, "He was the worst mistake I've ever made in my life." At that moment, I burst into tears. My parents clearly realized I was listening. 3 weeks later, my dad left and never came back. A month after my father left, my mom took her own life in front of me and my sister while saying, "Almost free." I currently live with my grandparents. I'm 16 and have a beautiful girlfriend who distracts me from my nightmares. She is the best thing that has ever happened to me. When I was a little girl, I used to be afraid of monsters or something creeping up on me while I slept, so I always asked my dad to check on me before he went to bed. It made me feel more comfortable. One night, I was still awake when I heard him come up the stairs, and I wasn't supposed to be awake and knew I'd get into trouble if he saw me, so I pretended to be asleep. He came into my room and stared at me for a few seconds. Then he walked over to my bed, lifted the blanket, farted underneath it, turned around, and left. At least 15 years have passed, and I remember that night vividly. He denies it to this day, but I know what happened. My dad and my stepmother were having a foursome with a couple of their friends. We were at a summer house, and they did it in the living room. I felt so awkward at breakfast the next day. He's too heavy to be carrying him to bed. That was the last time my father carried me anywhere to put me into my bed to sleep. I was about 10 years old. Now that I recall it, you never know when the last time things will happen is, and you start growing up. I once overheard my ex-girlfriend sending a voice message saying she wanted to break up with me. At that moment, I felt super bad because we had incredible trust and loved each other very much. So, I couldn't take it anymore, got out of bed, and asked her if it was true. She told me it was a joke because she knew I was awake. I felt relieved, we laughed, and I went back to sleep, but we still ended up breaking up anyway. Probably my father's screams of dementia. Usually, nothing happens, but he wakes up at 4 or 5 in the morning to yell at God and grind his teeth. You never get used to it. I was 11, and I remember my dad coming home from the hospital. He was visiting my grandfather. My mom asked him how he was, and my dad said, "He has already passed away." I couldn't sleep that night, I was so shocked. Days before this, my grandmother had told us to send him a letter for him to see. I was too lazy to do it until, just the day before, I decided to do it but ended up telling myself, better tomorrow. How I regret that. When I was waking up from anesthesia and could barely breathe, I heard, "I think we're losing her again." Hearing a knock on my bedroom door, which opened and slammed shut, but my family had gone on a trip until the next day. Since there are cameras, I checked them, and there was simply nothing. Since then, I can't stand for my door to be knocked on. I was pretending to be asleep while there was a party at my house, and I heard my mother say that she preferred my younger brother over me. It's understandable since he is much younger than me, but the way she said it was as if she hated me. My sister got drunk, and I heard a noise, and she passed out. Two of her friends, and my mom and dad, were shouting and telling each other to be quiet because they didn't want to wake me up. They were all crying, thinking she was dead, and I couldn't tell my sister that I was happy she didn't die. Now I appreciate seeing her every week. On my mother's 50th birthday, we arrived at my aunt's house, and I fell asleep for a while after an intense game of basketball with my cousins. Shortly after, I woke up and heard my sister say that no one likes me, and the rest confirming it. The only ones who didn't say anything were my brother-in-law and my aunt. It didn't really affect me much because I was the black sheep that everyone avoided, but what I heard just confirmed my thoughts. I woke up to a friend and her husband arguing in the next room because she had caught him stroking my hair while I slept on the sofa. It's not the worst, but it just reminded me of the time I shared a hotel room with my grandfather, and he got up in the middle of the night to urinate and, before going back to sleep, said a prayer aloud for his deceased wife. It was tough for me because I hear my brothers talk badly about me daily. I'm only 17 years old, and they already want me to leave the house because they know that I'm most likely going to inherit the house, and they think I'll kick them out as soon as the papers are in my name. The funny thing is that they are over 30 years old and are still dependents in the house. I woke up in the middle of the night, and pretending to still be asleep, I was listening to my parents talk about getting divorced. But what hurt me the most was my mother's incredibly sad voice. The next day, I acted as if nothing had happened, but unfortunately, they ended up divorcing. That my great-grandfather probably slept with his daughter, my great-aunt, and that was one of the reasons why she never married and was eccentric. My mom and my aunt thought I was sleeping in the back seat on a road trip. I have never told anyone what I heard. My mother told her sister on the phone, "You are so lucky, God. I wish I had never had children. I truly hate them." Fortunately, she is a loving mother, she was just going through a difficult time and didn't mean it. I once heard my mother talking on the phone with my father. They were already separated. She was crying while I just listened as she talked about my father's infidelity. I found out in the worst way, and the worst part was that his mistress was my teacher who helped me when I had bad grades. It was the worst way I ever found something out. I overheard my dad cheating on my mom, and then I heard the whole argument when she found out. In the end, she forgave him, but I can never forgive him for it. And I could never say anything because I was supposed to be asleep. And you, what's the worst thing you've heard while pretending to be asleep? Thank you very much for the support. Comment your favorite fruit to let me know you made it to this part of the video and that you are one of the most loyal followers. Remember to leave your like and subscribe.